Yo, what's up everyone and welcome to another Warframe video. Today we're going to continue looking at new builds that have been unlocked with our latest helm instability. Today we're going to be taking a bit of a fresh look at a frame I've not touched in a fairly long time, and that is Atlas Prime. Now Atlas Prime is a frame that's had a couple of different builds in its life, mostly either the One Punch Man crazy high power strength build, or a mix of max range and strength to one-shot large groups. But what if I told you there's a more efficient way to mod for strength and range without hitting yourself negatively too much? Well, that's what we have here. To understand the build, let's take a real quick look at the abilities that matter, which is, well, all four to some extent, plus the passive. Well, I guess all four once we helminth the second ability off the frame anyway. The passive is going to play a major role here because not only is it partly our survivability, picking up rubble generated by the 3 and the 4, but it's also going to play into the augment we're going to be using on the build, which is going to help our efficiency and allow us to spam landslide with no worries at all. First ability is landslide, and an ability that we're really modding specifically for. Atlas lunging forward with his fist, landing a 3-hit combo, each hit doing progressively more damage with more range on the attack, making it cheaper. And with it being completely free if you have above 1400 rubble and you've got the augment on. It's important to remember though that this ability has a base crit chance of 5%, which I already know has you looking at the footage and going, wait, what? Wait a minute. But don't worry, it is all going to become clear. Second ability is going to become Gloom. The slow, kind of irrelevant here to be honest. It's all about that full heal on every single punch. That's all that Gloom is on here for. Third ability, Petrify, is so we can generate tons of rubble, as well as making enemies more vulnerable to damage, which is really handy when you come up against tanky as heck heavy gunners and bombards. Fourth ability, basically there for more rubble generation. It's an option to use this if you're surrounded by a load of enemies all around. The 3 has a frontal cone, whereas Rumblers turns everything around you to stone. So it is situational, but potentially useful. So with those quickly explained, I can hear you all shouting, shut up and show us the build. You said it's only 5% crit, you're critting on every hit, sometimes orange crits. And yeah, you know what, you're right, there is some shenanigans you can do to build Crit Atlas, as bizarre as that might sound. So let's start with the frame's mods, since this is the least surprising and honestly the least interesting. Triple Umbral. Now, I do have an Umbral former on here, but by using a mixture of like partially ranked mods in the Exilus, you can get away without needing this. But I do have an Umbral, like I say, and I don't regret it. Then it's a mixture of range, strength, adaptation for damage resistance, and max efficiency so that Gloom and Petrify cost as little as possible and can be used at all times. The Arcanes are where things are going to start to get a little bit weird. Instead of the standard Guardian Grace combo, we're going to be running Energize for energy generation, since we basically take no damage ever. Half of this footage is in Steel Path mod, where every enemy does 4 times more damage than what they would do normally, and we are just not caring whatsoever. And because healing is being dealt with by Gloom, we can run Arcane Avenger. Yes, Arcane Avenger affects the fists, and I think you can see where this is going. We're already at 50% critical chance on those fists now, but where's the rest of it coming from? Well, that's coming from the melee weapon that you've got equipped. Now, the decision on what weapon you're going to sacrifice to buff landslide is going to depend on one thing. Are you going to Riven it or not? If you're going to use a Riven, you're going to want one with super high disposition. If not, you can use just about any melee you want. There's a couple of weapons that are clear winners if you're going to go non-Rivened, and that's the Venka Prime for the extra combo counter bonus. That's going to buff both your crit chance and your base damage of landslide. Or you've got the Legion, which is going to be the increased toxin, the 100% increased toxin. Although you have to swing the melee occasionally to proc that, landslide isn't going to do it on its own. In the interest of clarity though, the footage is recorded with a Rivened Kestrel. However, I'm going to give you the non-Rivened build so you can do it without needing to buy a Riven for it. Blood Rush, Gladiator Might, and Sacrificial Steel are going to give us that remaining crit chance to take us to just under 100% crit. It's like 99.5% or something like that, which means that it's only going to be basically once in a blue moon that you don't crit. Venka Prime will crit over 100% of the time with a Riven due to that combo increase, which is why it's top tier as a stat stick weapon for Atlas. Double impact mods with collision force and primed heavy trauma, since landslide is all impact, so it's great to buff the damage. Organ Shatter and Gladiator Might here buffing our crit damage, and Spoiled Strike is here for the extra damage. When it comes to Rivens though, crit chance is mandatory. If you can get one with more than Sacrificial Steel, then replace that with the Riven. The second stat is pretty important though, since there's a lot that does not affect Atlas. Personally, I would go with a crit chance plus damage because it's by far the best combination you can get for a stat stick Riven for this. But crit chance with either impact, crit damage or elemental would also work, just nowhere near as good as the crit chance damage. The golden rule is you need 1000% crit chance from all your mods to be able to hit the 100% crit and above. This means you can shuffle mods around as you see fit, depending on the Riven you get, provided you manage to hit that 1000% crit chance. However, with that, the Crit Atlas is born, and honestly this went very differently to how I imagined. I've always liked Atlas. The max range Atlas I build, well, it was a build I really enjoyed. Punching the world to death was pretty damn amusing. However, a Critless was not really something I'd considered, and now I'm wondering why not. Now I know someone's going to point out in the comments that this is using a Nova, which is doubling my damage. However, that's why I wanted to include the known Nova footage as well, just to show you that it does work without it. Now a word of warning, this is going to struggle in Grineer long run missions a little bit, especially Steel Path. Mostly because armor scaling is just going to be, well, armor scale is going to scale, isn't it, let's be honest. And the lack of strip is going to hurt you, but honestly, there's not really a lot you can do about that, beyond using a weapon that's going to strip entire groups of enemies of armor very quickly, like a Vermis Slicer or a Nucor, but then that adds a sort of an extra layer of awkwardness to the build. However, that being said, it still kills efficiently enough, and if you join a squad with someone who is doing some form of armor strip, like a Heldren for example, you are going to absolutely dominate. The Nova footage was more for fun than anything else. Yes, it's nice to clickbait 47 million damage crits, which does happen a couple of times during the footage, but it was more because of just the chaos that ensued. It was a ridiculously fun time and made some pretty good footage in my eyes. But this build is silly. It's both meta and non-meta at the same time. Non-meta since nobody mods for Crit Atlas, but also meta because, well, crit is very clearly meta. I had way more fun on this than the standard high strength Atlas, which can be a bit awkward to play. However, this build is an absolute breeze to play. Works without a Riven, then goes to silly heights with one. Absolutely an amazing build, and one that I recommend playing with. So thank you all for watching the video. Let me know your thoughts on it in the comments below. And as always, I hope you have a fantastic day, and I shall catch you in the next one.